the game. You don't play to just play. Come after me. I'm a man. I'm for you. Can't wait. Let's go.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. Thank you for making us part of your morning routine, whether you are on Facebook, whether you are on YouTube, whether you are live on Roku TV. Regardless, we are happy that you are here, and we are happy that we can be a part of your morning. I am Chris, and of course, that right there is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing great. Ready to go. Woke up a Wednesday. Can't get better. Lots of sports to get into.
Mo, let's get into this. So we talked yesterday on the show. Bill Belichick, he had a meeting with the Atlanta Falcons for their head coaching vacancy. He came out of that meeting saying that obviously he has mutual interest in them. They have come out and said they have mutual interest in him. The interest is mutual. And we kind of talked about it yesterday on the show of, is the interest actually mutual? Is this just him kind of keeping all of his options open? Because like you said, Mo, we don't know how big his actual field of interest is actually going to be as far as concrete offers that he is going to get for jobs. So if he has a notion that his field might be small, it would benefit him to take advantage and interview everywhere that he can if he's only going to get a couple of offers and he still wants to coach in the NFL next season. Well, on the heels of the mutual interest in Atlanta, a report comes out yesterday that Bill Belichick is looking for a, quote, project, Mo. He doesn't necessarily want a tailor-made, ready-to-go Super Bowl favorite. He wants to work for it. He wants a little challenge. He wants a little spice in his life. He wants a young team. He wants a team that kind of is underachieving, kind of under the radar. Mo, like we talked about yesterday here on the show, it sounds like, Bill is trying to prove that he can win without Tom Brady. And what better way to do that than to go to a team that, they're all right. They weren't great. The expectations weren't super high. He turned them around though, and now they're a winner, and now they're in the playoffs, and now they're in a Super Bowl conversation. All the things that we talked about here on the show yesterday, Mo, of kind of what he's looking to do in the final chapter of his coaching career. And Mo, you hit it right in the head, is that he needs wins, but more importantly, he needs success away from Tom. And now when he's coming out saying, I want a project, I want something I can kind of sink my hands into and get my hands dirty. It seems like that's kind of what it is that he is looking for. He is looking for a situation where his final chapter can kind of be maybe a proving ground of, I don't need Tom. Never needed Tom. I am great without Tom.
Right.
And it's kind of where it seems to be going, Mo.
I think he wants to be the architect of a team that came from being mediocre or underachieving to elevating them to a contender and then eventually, obviously, win a Super Bowl. To be the architect of that, of taking a team like Atlanta, who we do know they have some young, talented players, but I would say they're underachieving. And in the bigger sense, the history of the Falcons, obviously they've never won a Super Bowl. So he would be to bring them their first Super Bowl. He might be able to walk away like right after if they were to win the Super Bowl. Like, I'm good, mic drop. I've proven my point. I think it matters to him. And so a lot of the talk about if you fire McCarthy, I'm talking about the Cowboys, obviously, Belichick makes sense. Yeah, he makes sense if he wants to sign up for the Cowboys. But if what he's saying or what's being reported is true, the Cowboys are built to win now. They're built to win now. And if Bill Belichick is obviously an upgrade from Mike McCarthy, who won 12 games multiple times, it shows you how much talent the team is. I don't know how much credit Belichick would get for taking over a team that had 15 Pro Bowlers this season. So I do think that he wants to be part of the brain trust that brings up a team, that develops young stars and makes them into a contender and then a winner and then obviously winning a Super Bowl. I think that matters more to him than, let's say, signing on to a stacked squad.
I don't know, Mo. If he brings Dallas a Super Bowl in Dallas, maybe outside of Dallas, it will be different.
Sure,
but
they'll love him in Dallas. Oh yeah,
they will build that man statues in front of every Target, in front of every Walmart. Bill Belichick will be a god in that place.
He will be America's coach.
But to your point, yes. If what he is trying to do is establish himself and kind of just push out the back door anyone who has something to say about, well, without Tom, he needs to do it on a team that isn't already built to be a championship team. He needs to not, because then the next conversation is, well, all they needed was a competent coach. Mike McCarthy wasn't it. Any decent NFL coach could have went in there and won a title with Dallas. It's a shame that Mike McCarthy wasted 3 championship years being Mike McCarthy. He doesn't want to deal with that. So I understand.
But that would be the talk, though, wouldn't it?
It would.
If he wins, even though he's deserving of the credit, what they're going to say is, dude, we could think of 10 coaches that would have been an upgrade, that would have been competent, that would have been a better situational coach than Mike McCarthy. Of course you're going to win. So I think that not an ego thing, but I think he wants the lion's share of the team that develops into a title contender and then a winner. So I think I do believe him when he wants to say, the word project. I'm sure when he says project, he doesn't mean like, yeah, I want a project. I might want to go to the Carolina Panthers. I don't think he's looking for that kind of project. I think he's looking for a project where there's a glimmer of hope. So I don't think he's going that far down. Atlanta has talent. Their owner has money, and I think that there's no quick fix, but they do have talent, and you can make the right moves. You can go out and get a bridge quarterback with that talent and instantly turn it around and become a contender. And then maybe the next season you take another step.
And the other thing about Atlanta, let's not forget, is that they already seem to not be happy with QB1. So there's already been discontent with the previous regime with Desmond Ridder. The fan base already seems to be over Desmond Ridder. It would not be a stretch for the next head coach to come into Atlanta and be like, we're not keeping Desmond Ridder. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, we've already agreed Desmond's done, right? And I think that ownership is already going to be on board with that situation.
Right.
So
they're not going to kill the coach.
Right. You're walking into a situation where they're like, we're going to find the next quarterback. And, like our friend, the NFL genius says from wire to wire, marry the coach and the quarterback. And if you're walking into a spot where they're already open to that idea, that makes your life a whole lot easier, because the last thing you want, and if you're interviewing in Atlanta and the interviewing group is saying things like, we got Desmond, we'll kind of see what that looks like. No, if that's the vibe they're going to give you, if they're giving you a vibe of Desmond might still be on the radar as the guy for next season,
he's walking away. Yeah.
Go coach somewhere else. You don't need to be dealing with having him strapped to you for this season because ownership thinks he might be the guy. We don't think that's the case, Mo, but we don't know. We don't know the inner conversations in Atlanta. So if they are having those conversations, you don't want to be a part of that nonsense.
Not at all. I like I said, that saying, it means so much. It's a saying, but it's a very real thing. Marry the coach, the quarterback, and I love it. Where's my mug, Gene? Where's my mug?
Hey, we will talk to him later. He will be on here later on in the show this morning. But right now, we are going to welcome to the show Will. Will's going to join us. We got some basketball things to talk about. Mo, there are some things happening in the National Basketball Association, and I need to get Will's point of view on those things. Will, welcome to the show this morning. How are you?
Morning,
Thank you
Will.
so much. Hey, good morning, you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Good morning out there, everybody.
So, Will, we always kind of chuckle when we get a James Harden quote, a James Harden line, because usually the man speaks a lot of nonsensical things. But he is talking once again, and he's talking about how he wants to end his career as a Clipper. And Will, I would gosh darn hope that he's saying that, because if he's not saying that, it means he wants to be on another team, which we don't got time. We don't got time for James Harden wanting to be on another team. He needs to just be happy where he is. But it's nice that he's coming out and saying all those right things, Will. But of course, with James, there's always a caveat, is there not? He's saying that he wants to end his career as a Clipper because he wants another payday. He wants that big payday towards the end of his career. He wants the long-term deal that's going to lock him in as a Clipper for life, Will. What does that even look like? What is a long-term deal in the world of James Harden here? A man who most could argue is, the fourth best option at times on his current team. He is not viewed as a big three. That team, I think, for the most part, is viewed as two superstars, and James Harden is a complementary piece to the two often injured superstars they have. What does a long-term deal look like in Clipperland for Harden?
First of all, do you trust it? Do you trust he really means when he says that? Because if you go back, as long as things are looking nice and rosy in that particular situation, he's happy. He's going to be good. But the minute a little bit of turmoil comes along the way, you just said it, injuries. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, something should happen. Is he still going to feel that way after a losing streak? I just don't trust it. I just don't. As far as a long-term deal, look, I don't know how much money you will give him on that due to his age. He is an older player. So I can't imagine 3 years, maybe 2-3 years to have left.
I'm thinking 3 years, a 3-year deal. I think what they'll do, he might not take it. He might feel slighted. I'm just being real. We're talking about the history of James Harden.
Yep.
They're going to offer him a mini max, and that will probably be the end of James Harden on the Clippers.
Because that's going to start the anger.
Right. He's going to feel offended, and he's going to say, well, you just gave Kawhi $150 million, and then they're going to say, you're not Kawhi, and then he's going to really get angry, and James Harden will be moving on to his next team.
And that's my thing, because it's like anything that comes out of his mouth, until he proves it, until he backs it up, I count it as disingenuous. I really, really do.
They just paid Kawhi, obviously. Now the next question is, are they going to lock up Paul George long term? Obviously, that would be their next priority, Will. If they're going to lock up someone next, it's going to be George before it's Harden. So let's assume they lock up George long term to match Kawhi's deal. They're going into the new arena coming up here. They need superstars on the team. I find it hard to believe that the team's going to lock up Kawhi and lock up George. And Harden's not going to look at that money and be like, all right, time to lock up the third biggest star on this team. Time to lock up the big three on the three and the big three. And then I feel like Mo just said, Will, he's going to be a little hurt when the number isn't the same as what they're getting.
And that's when the trade offers start, the trade demands rather start coming into play. That's when he feels he's going to feel disrespected and he's going to feel slighted. And anything that come out that man's mouth, to me, is just disingenuous. Particularly when he starts talking about long term with a team. Like I say, it's all roses right now, strawberry and roses. But like I say, a little bit of adversity come along. You're not happy with your money. Losing streak comes along. That's when you'll start seeing the real James Harden.
If you are New York Knicks guard Quintin Grimes, it looks like your days are numbered playing for the New York Knicks, as your name has been mentioned a lot in trade conversations as the trade deadline heads towards us. Will, what do you think the market is for Quintin Grimes, and where do you think a player like him would fit in on another team that is looking to add depth as we get closer to the trade deadline and as teams kind of situate themselves for the push to the playoffs once the trade deadline passes?
It's going to be interesting because he's a young player. He still has he has some NBA value. You could probably maybe him trade him and maybe get another good bench piece that they're looking for from that for the backcourt. So yeah, I can see why they would trade him because the next team can take him and groom him as to being this great young superstar.
The best thing that can happen to Quintin Grimes is to get out of New York.
Yes. Which I want to ask you when I saw this as a topic. How the hell is Julius Randle still there?
I got to be honest with you. They love him. They are sold on him. They love him. They say all the things that when he plays like an all NBA player, and a lot of the mainstream media, they buy into that. When he plays like an all NBA player, the Knicks are an elite team. And I say the same thing. The man's never played like an all NBA player in the postseason. Never. He's never played like an average player in the postseason. So some guys are built for the regular season. That would be Julius Randle. The biggest anchor around the New York Knicks going beyond the first round is Julius Randle.
Yep, I agree.
And you don't have to get back a player of the same stature. I actually believe they could get back two lesser players who are better fits, and they would be better by default.
Right. So are you trying to trade Quintin Grimes to get some bench depth? You could be making that bigger move to get better as a team if you get rid of Julius.
Agreed.
And then Mo, where do you see Grimes going? What team out there that could be looking for young guard help might be a nice fit for Mr. Grimes?
I think there are a few contenders that will want his services. Like, you can insert him into your rotation immediately. I look at Milwaukee. They're one of the oldest, slowest teams in the NBA. They, like you said, when you think of basketball, you think of athleticism. Look at Milwaukee's roster top to bottom. There is one athlete on that roster. It's Giannis, and everybody else, they look like the cast from Hoosiers. They're not athletic. They're not quick.
And you see that on the defensive end.
You do. It's not just Dame Lillard. Yes, Dame lessens them defensively, but look at them top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
They're just a very slow, unathletic team. And now the formula to beat Milwaukee is you speed them up, speed up the pace, and they because they can't keep up with you. So I do think somebody like Grimes, who's already proven to be a good defender, reliable three-point shooter, would have great value for a team like Milwaukee. I think he would have value for a team like the Lakers or even the Mavericks. So I don't think there's a shortage of teams out there that wouldn't want his services in today's NBA.
I'd love to see him with the Mavs. I would love to see him with the Mavs, see what they can do with him, because he might be that player. He might be that player that they can really develop. He's averaging 6.9 points a game right now. You might be able to bump that up if you develop in, 11, 12 points a game. Hey, and then he can give you some playoff help too.
Will, I watch a lot of Knicks games. The guy that's locking him down is Tom Thibodeau. It's not the other teams.
Well, that's how Tom is. That's how Tom is. Tom
Thibodeau, he doesn't really work with young players very well.
Nope.
And so he relies on veterans. And so if you're a young player on Tom Thibodeau's team, more times than not, you will be buried on the bench.
And you saw that when he was with the Bulls, particularly a lot of playoff series against the Knicks. You saw a lot of those veterans get a lot of minutes, and they retired towards the ends of games and couldn't close because that's all he does is depend on veterans. He doesn't really look or to develop any type of young talent.
His guys play 40-plus minutes a game. And now, I don't want to get into the whole Derrick Rose thing, but to a fault, Derrick Rose in a blowout game was in the game and blew out his knee, and the rest is history. So I'm just saying that Quintin Grimes, to me, has a lot of value. It's one of those names that doesn't get talked about because it's not a big high-profile name. But put him on the right team, on the right roster, and I think you'll hear his name more and more.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
Gentlemen, the Los Angeles Lakers are 20-21 as we speak here this morning. But don't worry, because LeBron James has basically given us the answer to what could help the Los Angeles Lakers. And the answer is Bronny.
No, it won't.
LeBron said that Bronny could play for the Lakers right now, as in like today, and be an impact player on the Los Angeles Lakers. This is the same Bronny that has been held scoreless in his past 2 college basketball games for USC. We're not confusing him with some other Bronny. Same Bronny has scored his last 2 college games. But apparently, according to LeBron, if Bronny was a Laker, he would make an impact on the team this season. He will be good enough to play NBA basketball for the Los Angeles Lakers this season. Well, I'm all about hyping up your kids, right? I'm all for it.
Some people, and I have 2 boys and a girl, and my twins are want to play soccer. So I get it. You want to be there for your kids, support your kids, just that, the other. But sometimes you just need to shut the hell up, because when you go back and look at that statement, that's ridiculous. Bronny's not ready for the league. He's not ready for the speed. He's not ready to. Who in the league he gonna lock down? If you really look at him, he's undersized. Number one. So who is he stopping? Who is he stopping? And no, he's not ready. I disagree with LeBron, and I always disagree with LeBron on this. As of now, today, he ain't ready. He is not ready. And I wish LeBron would just stop doing stuff to make headlines. Because to me, LeBron is doing this just to make headlines and keep his name relevant.
Mo, if I'm a Laker, I'm in that locker room saying, okay, if I'm a LeBron teammate outside of AD, I'm in that locker room saying, well, wait a minute, who would he be replacing? Exactly. If he can play on the Lakers today, that means that someone's going to the bench to make room for Bronny.
If you ain't cut.
Right. So who is LeBron saying isn't as good on the team right now as his son would be? That's what I'm thinking if I'm the rest of the crew.
And now you're hitting on where this is all about. That is a shot at D'Angelo Russell.
Yep.
That is a shot at D'Angelo Russell because he does not compete on both ends of the floor, because he's not consistent from game to game. But that's a direct shot at D'Angelo Russell. And Bronny's a freakish athlete. I'll grant you that. But he's not even the first, second, or third best player on his college team. Maybe not even the 4th or 5th best player. So if you're not dominant at that level, the reality is if you were in the league right now, you'd be on the G League affiliate, and you probably wouldn't be starting from them either. So no, it's not realistic, but it's LeBron taking shots, and it was a shot at D'Lo. And look, I'm not the biggest D'Angelo Russell fan, but no, Bronny's not better than D'Angelo Russell. He actually isn't better than D'Lo.
No.
But LeBron being LeBron, Mr. Passive Aggressive, he took a shot.
Big time shot. That's what it always is, right? Well, it's always LeBron doing something passive aggressively, hitting agenda, side eye message. That's just the way LeBron works.
We're at 20-21. I think he feels that he needs to do something to keep the Lakers themselves relevant. Because right now you're looking terrible. But the thing I wanted to bring up real quick before we got out of here, that game last night, 76ers Nuggets.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed that game.
My only problem was both coaches failed miserably because their strategy, both coaches, was to go cross matchups and not match up the centers pretty much for most of the game. And both centers had their way with all the cross matchups. They just ate them alive.
Yep.
And then late in the game, they said, okay, let's just guard each other straight up. But by then, Embiid was rolling it, and it's over. Once he gets into a rhythm, he's unguardable.
Downhill from there.
My only problem with Embiid is this. Why do I never see that version of him in the postseason?
You know, Embiid was feeling it last night when the DX crotch chop was back in full effect. Full effect. When Embiid is in crotch chop mode, you know it's a good night for Joel
I
Embiid.
thought Road Dogg and X-Pac was about to come out.
He grew up watching some WWE.
He did. I
He
ain't mad at
definitely
you.
thinks he's the big guy in DX. You're right.
I ain't mad at you. Thought
Well,
Triple H was gonna make a comeback.
Before we get you out of here, let's talk a little Draymond Green. So Draymond has made his return to the NBA, and he was asked about coming off of the bench, and he gave, the stereotypical answer that you would hope he would give in that situation, given everything that he is dealing with in his return to basketball, which was, I don't care where you start me, coming off the bench, starting the game. I don't care what you do with me. As long as I get in there at some point, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to do what's best for the team. Cookie cutter answer. Do you think this coming off of the bench is going to be what the future holds for Draymond for the rest of the season with this team? Is this just something where Kerr is just trying to get him reacquainted with the team and basketball and the speed of the game and all that stuff because he was gone for multiple weeks? What's your take on Draymond and coming off of the bench?
I think it's temporary. Because Steve Kerr is going to feel like we're going to need Draymond out here. The season gets later on, we're going to need him out here because again, he's one of the he was bringing the ball up, getting the Warriors set up in their offense. So I think it's just temporary. I think he'll be back in the starting lineup. Hopefully, nothing goes wrong with that when he comes back. Hopefully, he doesn't go off the rails again. Because for what he does it well. I just hope again he doesn't go off the rails. Because he still gives the Golden State Warriors some value. So again, hopefully he can stay the straight and narrow.
It's funny you said that because I'm starting to think it's about time for them to blow it up. Like
I do too, in a sense.
How do you lose to the Grizzlies? No John Morant, no Desmond Bane, no Marcus Smart, and you get whooped by the Grizzlies. Like everybody says you got to sink to your low. That's got to be the low. But I'm trying to look at what is the high for the Warriors. Like for this season, is the goal like let's make the playoffs and then get knocked out in the first round? Like I don't feel like this is the same Warriors where our goal is to win the title. They might say their goal is to win the title, but realistically, looking at that roster, they're aging right in front of us. They're literally aging right in front of us, and the only guy playing at a high level is Steph consistently.
We talked about this one time. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. We talked about this once before. I do agree it's time to blow it up for everybody would be on the line but Steph. So I do agree that it is time to blow it up.
Let me ask you this, Chris. As a franchise, though, if they choose to blow it up and you go to Steph and go, we're going to blow it up, we're going to put some guys around you, try to make another push, or do you want to walk away from this because you don't want to start all over? Do you think Steph may lean towards leaving if they say we're going to bring in some younger legs and try to develop some guys around you, or Steph might be go the Dame route and go, well, I don't want to wait for guys to develop. I'm 34, 35. I need to go right now.
Good. Well,
my thing is, as soon as that comes out, you know what the media is going to take it. You know exactly what the media is going to take it. Oh, he coming to the Lakers.
Oh, God.
Exactly where he's coming. He's coming to the Lakers.
You're right, though. You're right.
He's going to show everybody he can still play with the Lakers and LeBron. Go out on a swan song. He going to get LeBron number 5. Man, get out of here.
And they're going to put everybody in the Lakers up for trade bait, name LeBron.
Yep.
And he, of course, is not going to go to the Lakers.
No. The
Warriors would never do business with the Lakers.
Nope. Don't see that ever happen.
At least not when it comes to Steph. I can't think about some of the lesser guys, but there's no way Steph Curry will ever suit up in the purple and gold.
No. You might see Clay, though. I ain't going to say in front. You might see Clay.
Gentlemen, I think that Steph, he may say it out loud. He might not say it out loud, but I think he knows and doesn't want to deal with anyone that's going to say something if he goes somewhere else and finishes his career there, because someone's always going to say something, right? Like, oh, you couldn't finish it out in Golden State. You had to go chase a title somewhere else. He's done enough with the Warriors. He did it pre-KD. He got the one after KD, which kind of solidifies and kind of closes the door on that narrative. I don't think he's going to get another one. I don't think there's anything that team can do. Not obviously this season's done.
Steph can write his own ticket. He can write his own ticket. Basically, he has that cachet. He's an NBA champion, so he can write his own ticket. So
and he's not ring chasing, right? So the narrative can't be, oh, you're ring chasing. No, he's got 4 though, so he
already got 4. So you can go somewhere where he's happy and can definitely contribute to win another championship.
All right. Well, pleasure to have you on the show every week. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week, sir.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate y'all having me on. Y'all have a good morning. Take care, everyone.
All right, Mo, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to have Gene from Wire to Wire. The NFL genius himself is going to be on with us. Hopefully, he's doing okay. It was not a great Philadelphia sports weekend, so we'll check in and see how he is feeling after what happened with the Eagles. And we got a lot of other stuff in the NFL to talk about. All of that and more on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. It's Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show. And we'll be back in 20 seconds with Gene.
Hey, y'all, I'm Key.
And I'm Jory, and tune in to Hoop Dreams and Touchdown Queens every Saturday at 5 p.m. over on Sports Empire Network.
And don't forget, also watch us on Roku TV at Northeast Streaming Productions. So tune in.
Welcome back. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show, and we are joined now by Gene from Wire to Wire. Gene, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm on my Pat McAfee this morning. I got my standing desk up. I'm standing up. I feel good. I do want to, I know you guys just talked about NBA. I do want to ask you guys one question. Last night, the Suns had their whole onslaught of all their players. They got a big win last night versus the Sacramento Kings. I'm going to ask you guys a question. Who had the most points? Who had the most shots? Was it Beal, Durant, Booker? Like, did you see the stat line?
Didn't see it.
I didn't see the stat line. I know Durant had like 25 or 26, but I don't know who had the most points.
Grayson Allen.
There you go.
27 points, 17 shots.
There you go.
Everybody's on the court. Grayson Allen, most points. It's hilarious.
Gene, let me ask you this. Let's start off here. We are Wednesday morning. We are 3 days removed from Sunday. We're 2 days removed from Monday night. And Nick Sirianni and Mike McCarthy are still gainfully employed by their football teams. I am shocked that one of them has not been terminated at this point. I personally think both of them should lose their jobs, but I am shocked that Jerry Jones didn't pull the plug on Mike McCarthy 3 days afterwards. Gene, does that mean that he's not going to? Because he doesn't usually want to think things over. He's usually one to do it in the moment. But here we are 3 days later. Where do you stand, Gene? Are you surprised that nothing's happened in Dallas? Do you think it's still coming? What is the future of Mike McCarthy?
Well, they have their exit interview. They had their exit interview yesterday. So I think that what Jerry Jones wanted to do is hear from McCarthy, hear from the coaches of what they thought went wrong. It was very obvious what went wrong in that game. They ran a matchup zone, basically like a half zone, half man defense all year. And Dan Quinn was just like, nah, we're just going to run zone all game. It made no sense. I don't know why they did it. They have two very good cover cornerbacks in Bland and Gilmore, and they ran zone the entire game. It was baffling to me. So I think the answer lies in Dak Prescott's not a big game quarterback. Mike McCarthy's not a big game coach. And Dan Quinn has proven again, when the moment gets big, he gets small. Do I need to remind you of 28-3? I'll leave that alone. There's no way that McCarthy and Quinn survive this offseason. I think Quinn takes the head coaching job over in Seattle, and I think McCarthy gets fired. I almost am certain that Dallas will make a move probably this afternoon.
Hey, Gene, let me ask you one question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mo, if that happens, if Dan Quinn takes the job in Seattle, and I'll get both of your opinions on this, but I want to start with you, Mo, and then you can get your question in for Gene. I think that is a mistake. If you are Seattle and you are shifting out of the Pete Carroll era and you were trying to bring new energy into this team, a new system into this team, a new vibe into this team, why are you reaching back for a name from the past, Legion of Boom, Dan Quinn? Like, what are we doing? That's not a new era. That's not a new vibe. That is you taking basically the number 2 face of your previous era and bringing him back in and putting him in charge.
Right.
Mo, I don't get it. If that's what you're doing, I think bringing Dan Quinn in is the worst move you can make if you're trying to start something brand new in Seattle.
No, I agree 100% with that. And I want to follow that up with, that would drive Pete Carroll crazy.
Of course it would.
Pete, you're sending me up to do some advisory thing because you talk about my regime and how we run things, but you're bringing in a guy that was under me, that learned from me. I don't get that at all. That would drive me crazy. So I don't understand that hire, but I think Gene's right. I think that's exactly where he's going to go, and he will be their head coach. I agree with Gene 100%. I want to ask Gene, if Dallas does something fast and they move on from McCarthy, who do you think they look to right away to fill that void? Do they have more than one guy in mind, or do they have just one guy in mind?
So that's an interesting question. I don't think they have anybody in mind. I think they're starting to compile that names now, because I don't think anybody in that organization would have thought that they would have made that exit the way they did as quick as they did. I think that was a shock to every single person, including me watching. I thought that was the easiest game to pick this week. I'm like, Dallas is going to mop the floor with Green Bay. Easiest game on the board. No way Dallas loses that football game. So I think that they're still in shock. I think they're compiling names. A name to look out for is Bobby Slowick. If they want to go with a young coordinator, offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, he's done a great job with CJ Stroud. He's in the state of Texas. I think that that's a name to look out for. I think that Jerry is going to go in a direction of a young, upcoming offensive guy. That's kind of what he's shown you, what he wants to do. The league's kind of going away from defensive-minded coaches too, with the exception of what DeMeco Ryans did. But they're kind of moving away from that. I think he'll go with a young offensive coordinator. And, you know, it also could be Mike McDaniel from Baltimore. There's a lot of guys that they can make that move for.
Gene, what do you think of the offensive coordinator from Detroit? Obviously, he's been talked about all season as having a head coaching job in this cycle, getting a head coaching job in this cycle. One, do you think that's going to come to fruition? Because we've seen this happen before. We've seen, you know, they always during the season anoint another offensive coordinator as the next best head coach. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Do you see him getting the opportunity let me rephrase that. Do you see him taking the opportunity? Because I can see Carolina being like, we want you, and him being like, that's thank you. I appreciate it. But no,
that was last year, Chris. That was last year.
Right.
Carolina wanted him. That was their choice. They all but offered him the job, and Ben Johnson got a text message from a player on the team. Like, you don't want anything to do with this organization.
Right. No.
Like, you want nothing to do with here. And he goes, I'm going to take a step back. I do think with the new ownership that is there, and Tepper's not done himself any favors, but I do think they will try again to get Ben Johnson. I think that's the move. You have a blue chip quarterback prospect, and I think you want a young offensive mind to marry with that blue chip quarterback prospect. But Tepper has shown you, if you don't believe in Bryce Young, we don't want you.
At all.
And he made that very clear with his firings. He fired all 3 guys that wanted CJ Stroud. When they didn't fire just Frank Wright. He fired Frank Wright, Josh McCown, and Deuce Staley. That's the Philadelphia coaching tree. All 3 of those guys came from the Philadelphia coaching tree, and essentially he fired all 3 of them because they wanted Stroud over Bryce Young.
So
I think Ben Johnson gets a job, though, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind. He's the hottest offensive coordinator name on the board. I think he 100% gets a job. And I just think you got to wait to see where the chips fall. I think that the big move is Harbaugh to the Chargers. And when that chip falls, I think a lot of more dominoes will roll down.
If they fire McCarthy, is that a name that piques the interest of Jerry Jones? Because it's a name.
Oh, 100%. As I told you, young coordinator. I just don't know if Ben would want to go in that situation. He's proven to you that he doesn't want to go to a bad situation. He doesn't want to go to it. Good.
What about Harbaugh? Does Harbaugh pique his interest?
I think that's why Harbaugh's not. I think that's why Harbaugh's not taking a head coaching job right now. I think he left the Los Angeles Chargers saying, "Look, I think he interviewed with Atlanta just to see what they had to say." But I think that Harbaugh left the Chargers being like, "Hey, listen, Philadelphia and Dallas could have coaching opportunities open. I just want to see what ends up happening because if they have interest in me, they're 2 blue chip jobs."
Right, for sure. Gentlemen, it's funny, leading into last weekend, one of the biggest stories coming into Super Wild Card weekend was the NFL taking advantage of their fans, allowing the Peacock network to have a game exclusively on their network, where if you don't have the network, you can't watch that game unless, of course, you were in the Miami or the Kansas City market because they showed the game in those markets. But if you were outside of those markets, you would have to subscribe to Peacock. And NFL fans were up in arms. This is ridiculous. How could they do this to us? This isn't right. We deserve better. I'm not buying Peacock, Gene. That's what they said. I'm not buying it. Well, the numbers came out and they bought it. And they bought it in record numbers. And the NFL playoff game on Peacock was the most streamed live sporting event in U.S. history. It was the most streamed live event and streamed event in general in the history of the Peacock network. NFL fans caved in, like I think we knew they would. Like I think the NFL knew they would. Like I think Peacock knew they would. And they're not going to let $5 or $6 get in the way of them watching a playoff game they wanted to watch. Sure, Gene, maybe some outside fans who just didn't give a crap about the Chiefs or the Dolphins. They were like, I'm not going to waste $6 on it. I'll go to my buddy's house. He has Peacock. I'll watch it there. But if you wanted to see the game, if you were invested in seeing the game, Gene, you made sure you saw the game. My question for you, though, is what does this mean moving forward? Because when test subject A works and it works well, you know there's going to be someone else lining up next season who is like, well, we got $110 million lying around. We'll give you $120 million. We want some of that as well over here on Amazon or Hulu or, Nickelodeon's Paramount platform, because Nickelodeon does stuff for their games. Is that what's next, Gene? We're going to get another one of those probably every season kind of deal. Where do you think it's going to go?
I think you're gonna. I don't necessarily agree with you 100% when you say it was a huge success. Yeah, it was a huge success for Peacock, and it was the highest streamed game. But they only had 23 million viewers. That didn't outrank 7 Sunday Night Football games this year. And I think, if I'm being completely honest with you, I think the Miami Dolphins, Kansas City Chiefs was the biggest ticket. I think that was outside maybe Detroit, LA, but there's no game that had more star power. There's no game that had more intrigue to me. Tyreek Hill versus his old team, Kelsey, Mahomes, Taylor Swift, and to get 23 million views, they cost themselves about 10 million viewers. Sunday Night Footballs were going in between 27 and 31 million viewers. They got 23 million on Peacock. I don't necessarily think it's a success, but I also don't think it's a failure. I agree with your point. You're moving towards pay-per-view. The NFL made a ton of money. They'll give up 7 million viewers for $11 million. They're going to do that. It's essentially, so I guess it is a success, but I think it's a failure for the sport of football. I think that, forcing the consumer to buy Peacock, and then next year Amazon Prime if you want to watch a playoff game, and then next year listen, you have to have the CBS streaming app to watch Josh Allen. I feel like that's coming. And it's only a matter of time for its pay-per-view. I think it shows you that you should be cutting the cord on your home cable and just investing in streaming services and internet.
Mo, a story that came out yesterday that's kind of flying under the radar, and I wanted to get both of your takes on this because I found it to be absolutely hilarious.
Oh, I know where you're going.
ESPN as a network is in hot water because they are involved in an Emmy scandal. And essentially what's happening here, and this has been happening for the better part of over a decade, is that ESPN has all these great television shows, for example, College Game Day. And College Game Day is always nominated for all these Emmy Awards. And the show usually wins an Emmy every season in their category. But little did I know the inner workings of this. And apparently it's a big deal, according to ESPN. But when a TV show, like, for example, College Game Day, wins an Emmy, the show wins the Emmy. The hosts do not win the Emmy. The hosts have their own category. So if we are all the hosts of College Game Day and the show gets nominated, we're not nominated. The show that we feed into is nominated, and they're recognizing the crew, the production, all that stuff that makes the show possible. Right. If we are going to get recognized, we would get recognized separately as a host of a show. That's how the Emmys does it. Well, I guess apparently, Mo, ESPN was like, well, that's not very fair. We want our guys on the show, the hosts, to get trophies too. So ESPN was submitting fake names to get extra trophies that they would then turn around and have re-engraved if the show won. And then they would send the re-engraved trophies out to the host of the show so they could also have an Emmy, even though they technically didn't win one, but the show won one. And this has been going on for like 12 years, Mo. I saw this story and I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. But at the same time, it's also like completely ridiculous for a multi-billion-dollar company like ESPN. Like, what are we doing? And then they sent back like 36 Emmy Awards. So now I'm like, did they go into these people's houses? They went into Kirk's house and was like, hey, Kirk, we got to get those 2 Emmys back. Those weren't really for you, my guy. Yeah. And let's be honest, they were actually for Kirk Herb. We just added the street to the end of it. Sorry about that, Kirk. Mo, what is this? It's such an embarrassment. And I saw Desmond Howard. He was doing an interview. He was on the Pivot, and he was saying, as he was being told what was going on, there were people going to Lee Corso's house to take away his Emmy, and in you know what I mean, live in the moment. And Desmond Howard started cursing. He was very upset because I can't believe they're going to go into this old man's house and take his Emmy. He's done nothing wrong. And he's wondering what the hell's wrong with ESPN. Why would they do this? What, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking the same thing. You didn't have to do that. I think what you said, what you laid out is, if College Game Day wins an Emmy, we all win the Emmy, right? There are individual categories, but we would all win the Emmy. And if ESPN wanted to do something extra for us, give us Emmy bonuses, right? Do something like that. That's above board. That would have been fine. But they had to go out and make up alias and fake. By the way, the fake names were not good because they were very similar to their real name. It was horrible. Well, you know, they had to make it easier to re-engrave. If you have like a ridiculous fake name, that's a lot of cover up and re-engraving. If like half the name is right, it's not a lot of touch-up work. Gene, I believe that the hosts weren't really involved in this. I didn't know the inner workings of the Emmy Awards. I thought if your show wins an Emmy, great, everyone gets a trophy. That's awesome. So I don't think, you know, the hosts necessarily were like a part of the collusion here. Maybe they were. I don't know. But Gene, what a stupid thing to do. It's dumb.
I was baffled when I read the story. I still don't know like who to be upset with. I'm guessing ESPN for writing in the fake names, but like I don't know why the Emmys can't just give trophies to the people that are the host of the show. So like I get what you're saying, but like I take a step back and be like, how much are these Emmy trophies costing? It can't be that much to the point where we can't just give like 6 to the hosts. I just feel like if ESPN was like, well, we really want to get trophies for the host, the Emmys would be like, okay, that makes sense. Let's just do that. And we wouldn't have to have this whole scandal of writing in fake names and re-engraving them. To me, it's in a world full of real stories. It's a really stupid, dumb non-story.
And it's almost like the Emmys are like, Gene, well, no, you can't have an Emmy because you're not technically an Emmy winner. Like we just can't give you the trophy, Gene.
Right.
Like what do you think we are? We can't just give out Emmys.
What
It's embarrassing.
ESPN has set themselves up to take shots from every other sports network now. Like they're going to be low hanging fruit for a minute.
I mean, they should be though. They should be.
They should be. Gentlemen, Mike Tomlin said today or end of yesterday that he is back. He is not leaving Pittsburgh. Gene, do you buy it? Is he back, or is this going to kind of calm the waters for now, and there might be a move coming later on?
Does he have a contract extension? The answer is no. The answer is no. If you're going to let Mike Tomlin coach in a lame duck year, you should probably just move on from him. And Mike Tomlin is one of the greatest coaches in football history. And I will not have any blasphemy about Mike Tomlin. Like I was listening to Shannon Sharp talking about like, oh, we're talking about him not having a losing record. The goal is to win. You have to look at the circumstances that he was given. Number one, he had Ben Roethlisberger and he won a Super Bowl with him. But he also had two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time that was going against Ben Roethlisberger and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning for the majority of his career. Number two, they haven't replenished him with a new quarterback, and that's okay. But that's not Mike's fault, but that's also, I don't want to give Mike a reprieve from that. But if the goal in Pittsburgh is to always be winning Super Bowls and you want to move in a different direction, that's fine. But tell him before his 1 year is up, do not let him coach a lame duck year as one of the greatest coaches of all time, and have a conversation with him about, listen, we're going to move it a different direction, but you're one of the greatest coaches ever. How can we help you? What can we allow you to do? And for an organization that's so great at a million things, I feel like they're not really handling this the best way. You're going to let him coach out his lame duck year? It doesn't make sense.
Before we get you out of here this morning, we want to talk a little bit about the number one seeds. So we didn't really talk about them last week for good reason. They didn't play. But this weekend, you're going to have the Ravens and the 49ers on the field. They're coming off their bye week. They should be fresh as daisies as they both try to make their Super Bowl run. But, Gene, my question for you before we get you out of here is, which of those two teams is going to have the more challenging game coming out of their bye? Is it going to be the Ravens with the Texans, who just blew out a team that some thought they were going to win the game? I don't think many thought they were going to destroy the Cleveland Browns like they did. Or is it going to be the Niners who just put it on, or the Niners who are playing the Packers who just put it on the Dallas Cowboys? Another even more surprising outcome from the previous weekend. Which of those two number one seeds do you think is going to, I'm not saying either of them are going to lose, but where do you think the more difficult matchup lies in those two games?
Well, I think this is kind of obvious, and maybe I'm just, but when you look at the teams and you break them down, Houston, let's just say Baltimore and San Fran are equals, right? They're both one seeds. When you look at the teams that they're playing against this week, I don't know what position group you would take in Green Bay over Houston. Like, I don't know. Like, I'd rather have maybe running back with Aaron Jones over what they have in Houston. But, like, I would take CJ Stroud. I would take Houston's edge rushers. I would take Houston's linebackers. I would take Houston's cornerbacks. I'd probably take Houston's offensive line. So the answer is Baltimore. I think they'd have a lot tougher road with. And I think that CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryan, even head coach, right? You taking LaFleur or you taking DeMeco Ryans? I think that Baltimore has a little bit bigger challenge. I also think San Fran's been to conference championships and won playoff games before, whereas Lamar Jackson and Baltimore really haven't. So I think the answer would be Baltimore has the tougher road going against the Texans. I think Green Bay was a product of Dallas just shitting down their legs. Like, I don't want to take anything away from Jordan Love and what they did. And Jordan Love and CJ Stroud stats were identical, like so much, like the hilariously identical.
Yep.
But I don't want to take anything away from Green Bay, and they deserve their win. But I just don't see what they can do to really stop San Francisco. I do have one stat for you guys, though. Can I give it to you? We got you free go?
Let's hear it.
All right. So I'm going to read you 5 teams' offense stats. Not offensive stats, but Houston, Detroit, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Baltimore. Think this is a good offensive stat or a bad one? Just by those names.
I'm going to say good.
Okay. Philadelphia, Cleveland, New York Giants, the Chicago Bears, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Probably trends towards bad.
Okay, so I actually broke this down because I really wanted to understand it a little bit more because Philadelphia has no idea how to beat a blitz. Top teams in the NFL in targeting the middle of the field, throwing the ball across the middle. Houston, Detroit, San Fran, Tampa, Baltimore. Throw the ball across the middle of the field at an average of 24, 25, and 26%. The teams that cannot throw the ball over the middle of the field, Jacksonville, Chicago, the New York Giants, the Cleveland Browns, 16%, 15%, 14%, 14%. Philadelphia Eagles threw the ball over the middle of the field 11% of the time. What makes that even worse is their last 7 weeks, they've thrown the ball over in the middle of the field 8% of their throws. That is literally less than half than the worst in the NFL. Exit interviews are happening in Philadelphia today. They're happening today. Expect firings to happen today. That's what I want.
That's
Gene,
a hell of a stat, Gene.
That is a hell of a stat. Where can we see Wire to Wire? You guys on tonight?
Oh, yeah. We're on tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to talk about the NFL playoffs. We got a little college basketball action to go over tonight. Got a little bit update. And then we got a UFC card this weekend, 2 championship fights. So we'll be talking about that tonight. So tune in. Appreciate you guys.
All right, sir. We will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Gene.
Take care.
Always a pleasure having Gene here on the show with us, Mo.
doubt.
As we wrap up here on a Wednesday, and what a great Wednesday it's been, let's talk a little bit about this. So the big question in Miami right now as they head into the offseason, and I'm going to present it to you. We kind of know where I stand with the Dolphins. But the big question is going to be about Tua Tagovailoa and whether or not they should give him a contract. He's played through his 5th-year option. What do you think, Mo? Are they going to lock up Tua long-term?
Yes.
Or are they going to look elsewhere?
I've heard a lot of people say they should look elsewhere. I'm not of that opinion because I thought his biggest challenge was coming into this season, Chris, was stay healthy, protect yourself.
Which he did.
He did. He accomplished that. And I believe he led the NFL in passing yards. I could be wrong, but I believe he did.
He did.
So he was one of the top quarterbacks statistically. And yes, the Dolphins did make the playoffs. Yes, they lost, but that is a successful season. They got to the postseason. They haven't done that with regularity over the last few years. So that does matter. He is the leader of that offense. I think we talk about it, marry the coach to the quarterback. Well, I think him and Mike McDaniels are married.
Yes,
I think
they are.
I think they work well together. They know each other. I think Tua will get better. I don't think this is the best version of Tua, if that makes any sense. I think there is a better version of Tua. I also think there's a better version of Mike McDaniels. People keep forgetting how young he is and how he is also developing. So I would be shocked if the Dolphins did not give Tua the extension.
All right, Mo, close us out, sir.
Appreciate everybody in the chat. Thank you guys all so much for the support. Chris and I appreciate it. Check out all the great content we have on the Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow morning where we're going to start breaking down the divisional matchups and making some picks for the playoffs this weekend. All of that and more tomorrow morning. Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show here on Sports Empire Network, and we will see you in the morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey.